Rights. Now we bring you a discussion on fifth positive indigenization list, building self-reliant defense sector. The participants are Major General Ashok Kumar, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist.
The Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, yesterday made very critical announcement. He released what is called the fifth positive indigenization list. To explain to our listeners, this means that the items on this list will now in future henceforth be only made in India. This is the fifth list, as I say. There are hundreds of items already which the Ministry of Defence has taken off from the list which was being imported for the past 70 odd years and put it on what they call a positive indigenization list. Now this list signifies that these items in future will only be made in India, as I said earlier. Now these 98 items in the list yesterday include very critical items and will mean that around 1.40 lakh crore worth of indigenous material will be procured in lieu of what was being imported. And this I am mentioning only for the fifth list. How do you see this development? We are adding more items to the positive indigenization list. We keep on adding. How do you see it?
Thank you very much for asking this pertinent question. As you have seen, India was one of the leading countries of the world which was importing its bulk of the defense equipment. In fact, there was a time that it was one of the largest importer of defense equipment in the world. And out of 5 equipments which got exported by different countries, one was imported by India. And majority of that was from Russia. But as nation progressed, it realized that it has to be self-reliant as far as defense equipment is concerned. Because without the self-reliance in defense equipment, it cannot fulfill its national ambitions. So it started working in that direction, but the whole thing gained much higher momentum once Chinese transgressed in Eastern Ladakh in 2020, followed by Russia and China becoming all-weather friends, no-limit friendship, and Russia getting involved in the Ukraine war. And we were affected not only for our defense equipment, their sustenance, but their maintenance as well. To do away with that and to solve that problem, India initially started with negative import list. That is, putting the items in that list which were not supposed to be imported. But after the third such list, they realized that negative import list is a little negative to hear at. So they redesignated the negative import list as positive indigenization list, wherein they keep including the items which they want to indigenize and procure from their domestic industries. They had already come up with 4 positive indigenization lists so far, which covered almost 411 items. And now, yesterday, the 5th list has come, which has got 98 items. So all 5 put together, there are 509 items in the positive indigenization lists. Now, at times, people get the impression that the item is put in the list, same day you cannot import them. It is not so. Besides listing of the items, they have also given the assessed timeline beyond which that import will not be allowed. And at times, this timeline varies anything from 7 to 10 years also, more so for the complex items. And it does take time. And I must highlight, Ajay, that there are 3 methods predominantly for making the country self-reliant in indigenous production. First is country's own R&D based development, but that takes too much of a time, which probably we don't have at the moment. Second is the technology transfer based induction and combined with own R&D and then producing those items domestically. Time is relatively less, but technology transfer has got its own challenges. Third is the establishment of joint venture where the country gets the entire technology without any hesitation, and the domestic industry also gets requisite skill sets to develop and produce those equipments. So I think in the final list, they have included number of complex items.
One thing I would want to add here, the listeners will be very keen to know what kind of items are in this list. As you rightly said, this is a staggered timeline. It is not that tomorrow we are going to stop importing some of these things and the armed forces will suffer in case of the readiness. The armed forces will not suffer in the case of readiness. These things have a timeline to it. I'll just tell the listeners a few important items. General Kumar, I will seek your comment on that. A quantum key distribution system for optic fiber networks is a very important thing. It is there. The MOD is wanting a 200-kilometer range for it. Satellite-based electronic intelligence systems, very high-frequency radar, including they are asking for electro-optic fiber control systems for naval platforms, futuristic infant combatary vehicle, that is what colloquially is known as the BMP we imported from Russia in the 80s. The trade name of it is called the Future Infantry Combat Vehicle. We have also spoken or we want vertical lift drones and unmanned aerial systems that can fly off from naval warships. General Kumar, some of these are very high-tech items, especially the quantum key kind of thing. They're very high-tech items. How do you think we are going to match these?
These are very, very important, Ajay. Actually, disruptive technologies are changing the very shape of the war fighting. If you would have seen, even in the Russia-Ukraine war, the drones played a major role in achieving their targets, whereas the conventional platforms like tanks and other weapons did not do that much, regions notwithstanding. So in this list, the government has included two type of items. One is the futuristic items which it wants for the mass production for its defense forces. And second and more prominent is those which require technology infusion. Like you highlighted in case of optical fiber, they have gone up to that requirement of data communication up to 200 kilometers. Similarly, for vertical drones, they have gone that it can carry 2 kgs of weapon load also, and it can be used by army as well as navy, the commonality of uses. And for the satellite inputs, they have gone in for the artificial intelligence based input. So all those future technologies which are now getting imbibed by the modern forces in the world like USA and elsewhere, predominantly in NATO countries, they are all going to be included in this so that as time progresses, the Indian Defence Forces also are able to handle their challenges in the requisite manner.
General Kumar, when the Defence Minister announced this yesterday at a function called the Savalamban 2, Savalamban is an Indian Navy function organized by the Naval Innovation Organization Cell. The Defence Minister was very categorical as he said the following, I quote him, "Due to foreign invasions, we had forgotten our innovative approach. The word local became synonymous with low quality. We are now freeing ourselves from that mentality." Unquote. This is what the Defence Minister said. How do you see this in context, General Kumar?
This is very, very important development. As you are aware, not only in the Defence Forces, Prime Minister has been focusing on the entire country to be vocal for their local so that our own domestic products made in India make a mark in the entire world. And that is the way to go. Similarly, since besides reducing the imports, making the country self-reliant, the country is also focusing on the exports of the defense equipment. By the financial year 24-25, they have aimed that the target will be 35,000 crores. Now, the defense equipments will be purchased by the buyers only if it is attached with the quality parameters. And therefore, the focus is not only on the domestic production, but the production which can vouch for its quality the world over. It is one of the best in the world because only there will be a lot of takers in the world for our exports, and that will cement our relationship and our import will also reduce.
General Kumar, we have seen 4 such lists, very promising items on the list, which includes making our own helicopters in the long run, fighter jets. We already are making the LCA Tejas. The Indian Air Force has gone ahead and is looking at 100 more Tejas Mark 1A. The Indian Army has added so many items to its arsenal which are made in India, especially in the artillery section where there is talk about loitering munitions and far-reaching artillery shells, artillery ammunition which can go for a further distance and hit at enemy posts. General Kumar, is there some kind of a balance the RM, the Raksha Mantri, is trying to strike between what modern day warfare needs and the lessons which you're learning from Russia? Are there some kind of balancing act being played out by the Ministry of Defense?
I think yes, to a large extent, because on one hand, we are trying to become ambitious, but realistically speaking, the target lines which have been set in first, second, third, fourth list, and now what are going to be set in the 5th list, which have been declassified yesterday, it will be worthwhile to carry out an audit. And you will realize in most of the cases, the timelines have got deviated because the production of the defense equipment, the technology infusion, the integration, and it is a whole vast range of things. Even the most modern armies like that of USA or elsewhere, they also don't produce the entire equipment 100%. They produce bulk of it, important control equipment, but some of the items they also import and then they assemble and integrate. India has to also undergo through process. So in case of the Russian import being high, while on one hand it is maintaining its relationship well with Russia despite all the challenges and criticism of the Western countries, it is also focusing on the indigenization part so that sooner or later its dependence on a particular country, whether friendly or otherwise, that should not debar the country's geographical integrity if our adversaries try to do anything against that.
General Kumar, we all know that there has been a push of Atmanirbharta and Make in India. The last year, ending 31st March 2023, the last fiscal, we had an export of around 17,000 crore rupees to other countries. This includes defense equipment and defense services. There is a steep target which Prime Minister Modi has set of around a $5 billion export in the next 2-3 years. Do you see this happening, and how will this benefit our local industry?
It is quite believable target. There may be challenges, but to analyze, you will see that initially our defense exports were hardly any. That was because of the country's policies and also not having the wherewithal. Whatever items we were trying to export to some countries, there were no major equipment which was getting exported. Even for the first time, we have agreed to give weapons to Armenia during Armenia and Azerbaijan conflict. And you must realize that whenever you are giving weapons to one country which is already in the process of conflict, directly or indirectly, you take side of that country. It is another connotation which country is changing. And long-range artillery guns and number of other equipments, it is going to be exported to various countries in the world. And there are more than 60 to 70 countries which will line up to India because most of them had the Russian equipment origin and they have all got dried up in terms of supplies. So they are looking towards India because India has, despite all the challenges, enhanced its capability to sustain the existing equipment and to improve them.
General Kumar, let's talk about the industry. The Indian industry is just about, the defense manufacturing industry is just about finding its feet on the ground. The Ministry of Defense has okayed several incentives, has allowed even kind of a joint research kind of a thing. They have allocated money, thousands of crores rupees into research, which goes into setting up new projects, which is called the IDEX projects. People who are winning these projects are given some kind of a grant to keep on working at these projects. Do you think the Indian industry has come of age, or will it take gradual steps over the next 10-15 years to actually match these manufacturing abilities of the developed world?
I think domestic defense industry has got miles to do. First is their mental orientation. The previous norms which were prevalent and previous focus which was prevalent, those who have experienced that, they are not very keen because that was not a good experience. I will just illustrate you by a small example. Let's say suppose somebody participates in a tender and wins that tender for that particular year, being the L1 participation, that is the lowermost bid. Now that person has the assembly line, production and everything, and next year again he has to take part in the bid, and that year it may not be the L1 vendor, and therefore the focus on industry gets reduced. So government of the day now has realized this, and in case of ammunition, like there are 10 type of ammunitions which are ex-import category, as against issuing the RFP only for one financial year, they have issued for 10 years duration, so that whichever domestic firm invests money and funds, they are not left high and dry. Similar is the case for MSME sector, though there is a lot of incentive, but in majority of things, we have to modify the defense acquisition procedure, both for capital as well as revenue expenditure, to ensure that the contracts are given relatively for longer duration.
Thank you for speaking to us, General Kumar.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on the 5th Positive Indigenization List, Building Self-Reliant Defense Sector. The participants were Major General Ashok Kumar, Defense Expert, and Ajay Banerjee, Journalist. This program is produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official.